On January 10, 1901, Pauline Stark was born in Joplin, Missouri. By her 12th birthday, she had made her screen debut with a bit part in The Claws of Greed, and over the next few years she became well known for her memorable roles in films such as The Arizona Express, The Little Girl Next Door, and A Royal Romance. Pauline Stark was probably the very first Joplin, Missouri actress or actor to make the leap to movie stardom, though she's not really remembered today. She went to school in Joplin as a child. In the mid-1910s she and her mother moved to Los Angeles. Her mother was an actress. Why did they go into acting? They needed the money, said her mother. Both women played bit parts in silent films. Pauline got her first notice as an extra in the 1912 film, The Claws of Greed. D.W. Griffith cast her as a dancing girl in his monumental film, Intolerance, in 1916. Supposedly Griffith admired her forehead. Shortly after graduating from Los Angeles High School, Stark accompanied a friend who was a studio extra to the set of Griffith's production of Birth of a Nation, 1915. While filming a mob scene, Griffith spotted Stark, according to a February 22, 1925, Times article. "You're just the person I want. Get into a costume," Griffith said. The 1925 Los Angeles Times article continued, although she was just one of 10,000, her wistful face registered sufficiently in a close-up to attract the attention of other directors. One part followed another and each one was larger than the last. With a small, thin frame at 5 feet, 3 inches tall and less than 100 pounds, she was initially typecast in roles that appealed to the viewer's sympathy. She got her big break when the actress Bessie Love was unavailable and she was cast by director Frank Borzage for the leading role in Until They Get Me in 1917. The melodrama was all about an innocent Canadian man, pursued by the Mounties, who vowed to visit his young daughter once a year. Pauline was the daughter who worked as a servant, but by a quirk of fate fell in love with the Mountie who had been pursuing her father. One contemporary reviewer noted she had a look that was completely different from other leading women of the day. That man called her an unadorned beauty. Pauline seemed attracted to Canadian plots and played another Canadian girl in Flower in the North. After the 1917 film, she became one of Borzage's regular leading ladies. She starred in 7 of his films in 1917 and 8 more in 1918. She was noted for her ability to cry real tears. In a photoplay interview in 1918 titled Pity Poor Pauline, the writer noted, "After climbing the ladder by means of 54 maidservant parts, she's kept actual count, 8 as scrub women, innumerable times in mob scenes, 18 as factory girls, 7 as debutantes, 24 as waitresses. After all this, she's destined for the time being to at least provoke the audience's elusive teardrop. Her job is manufacturing sympathy." Having an expressive face and a winsome look was vital in the era of silent films. Borzage was an actor himself who turned director. His trademark was intense identification with the feelings of young lovers in the face of adversity, with love in his films triumphing over such trials as World War I, Seventh Heaven and A Farewell to Arms, Disability, Lucky Star, The Depression, Man's Castle, and a thinly disguised version of the Titanic disaster in History is Made at Night. Stark went on to portray roles across the cinematic spectrum. She starred with Tom Mix in westerns. Her role in Flower in the North is touching, girlish, and you can watch this film on YouTube today. She was a member of King Arthur's court in 1921 in the first of several versions of Mark Twain's Connecticut Yankee. She played a woman lost on a South Seas island. She was at home portraying waifs as well as high society types. MGM hired her in 1925 at $1,000 a week, the equivalent of almost $18,000 today, increasing her salary the next year to $1,500 a week. In all, she had 69 film credits from 1914 to 1943. In local newspaper ads, she was at times named as Joplin Movie Star. Her star power was such that she was named to the first group of Wampus Baby Stars in 1922. The Western Association of Motion Picture Advertisers, an industry group, starting in 1922, honored 13 women each year who they thought had promising film careers. The awards were chosen from 1922 to 1934, except for 1930 and 1933. The award winners received a great deal of publicity. So much so that the studios pressured Wampus to discontinue the awards as it competed with their own publicity campaigns. Other women chosen who made names for themselves in the film industry were Fay Wray, who you can learn about on this channel, Joan Crawford, who you can learn about on this channel, Dolores Del Rio, Mary A. Estia, Sally Rand, and Loretta Young. Pauline worked in the pre-motion picture production code era. It meant numerous topics and situations were dealt with very frankly. Scenes could be as suggestive or provocative as the director desired. In 1923, she wore swimsuits on Tahiti beaches in Lost and Found on a South Seas island. Her role in the 1924 film, Dante's Inferno, saw her perform in the nude, clothed only with a long black wig along with other fully nude actors. Dante's Inferno is a great film and I highly recommend it, especially around Halloween. Pauline portrayed a prostitute in Captain Salvation, in 1927, who tried to reform after conversion to Christianity, but who committed suicide after others would not leave her alone. Crawford and Swanson would echo this theme in Rain. Stark has never played a role in which her part has not been one of deep sympathy. This is especially true of her three most recent Paramount productions, Forbidden Paradise, The Devil's Cargo, and Jack London's Adventure. The Times raved about her work in The Devil's Cargo. She plays the gambler's daughter who is loved by the editor, wrote critic Herbert Moulton on February 9, 1925, and she plays it with exceeding finesse. In many of her close-ups, she reveals an amazing resemblance to Gloria Swanson. As with many silent stars, she did not make the transition to talking films. One of her last films was indicative of how studios were trying to include sound and color in their creations. The Viking, from 1928, was a unique production. It was the first color silent film with a musical soundtrack. MGM experimented by filming it in Technicolor 3, the newest color process. The story was based on a novel about Leif Erikson. It included conflicts between Christians and pagans, Britain and Viking, as well as romantic competition for the affections of Helga, Pauline in a winged helmet. While the full-length feature film was dramatically better than earlier color processes, the attempt at historical accuracy meant there were lots of helmets, full beards, and body armor, Vanna on film. Pauline, whose blonde tresses flowed from beneath her own winged helmet, had lamella-scaled armor that left her shoulders bare. The color was striking and called dreamlike, but reviewers thought the actor's makeup was overdone. Though the men didn't fare so well with all the makeup, Pauline held her own on the screen and as a headstrong Viking. Even then, the film was a flop at the box office. It wasn't until the next decade studios moved to color, and even then selectively. A major career move in 1929 occurred when director James Cruise replaced Pauline with his wife Betty Compson in 1929's The Great Gabbo. She was looking for stability in the wake of this disappointment and turned to marriage. Pauline retired from active film work in the 1930s. She was never a great fan of Hollywood, and would tell interviewers it was a wicked place. Her other quotes are, "Oh, vamping is so much fun. Vamps are usually, well, voluptuous. One day a week the face should be free, unhampered by any makeup. I set aside one day a week in which to rest the face." Miss Stark admits she likes to wear nice gowns, but she isn't especially prejudiced to gingham either. There's a woman for you. She married producer George J. Sherwood in 1932. Theirs was a long and happy marriage. Supposedly they actually divorced and then remarried after a trip to India together. Sherwood had 2 children from a previous marriage and died in 1950. Pauline's first marriage was to Jack White in 1927, but they divorced in 1931. Jack White was the Americanized name of the Jewish Jacob Weiss. Born in 1897 and 4 years older than Pauline, White got his start riding horses as an extra in Hollywood since he lived near a stable. Somehow, while still a teenager, White became the leading producer for educational pictures, making very popular comedy shorts with Lloyd Hamilton, Lupino Lane, Ligay Conley, and Al St. John. He was renowned for shooting around dead actors and cutting existing footage to make it seem like actors had never died, which he did in The Scheming Schemers of 1956 after one of the Three Stooges passed away. Stark's 1927 marriage to Jack White, a producer-director of comedies, was well covered in the press. The Times called it one of the most romantic and enduring love affairs in filmland. The couple married in San Francisco after an 8-year off-and-on romance. So Stark was with White when she just turned 18 and he was 22. Their happiness didn't last. They were divorced in 1931, Stark receiving a $28,000 property settlement. 2 years later, Stark sued White, claiming she had been coerced and intimidated into making the settlement. White denied the charges, the Times reported on May 2, 1933, making the general denial that he plied the actress with liquor, asserting that he pleaded with her to stop drinking, but without success, or that threats were made to break her in the motion picture business. Stark's lawyers pressured White in the 1931 divorce, raising questions of the blackmail they had on him. The pressure prompted White to adopt the Preston Black pseudonym to avoid further distress. Stark was inducted to the Hollywood Walk of Fame on February 8, 1960 with 1 star. She died in Santa Monica, California, in 1977 from a stroke, and her ashes were scattered at sea. She had no children.